This is the Heart to Heart with Statton podcast. Welcome back, everybody. This is the first Heart to Heart with Statton podcast in 2025, and I'm very excited about this one. But before I explain why, I'd like to introduce to you my co-host. There's Alderon.
Hey.
Then there's Lil. And then there's Tinfoil from Poland.
Anyways,
Why do you always have to mention that?
Because it's funny. Anyways, now I'm very excited because today we have a special guest, a person that I've become very good friends with over this last year or so. And I'm finally excited to have her on. And her name is Liv from the... one second, Liv, I got to pull that up on Instagram really quick.
Not Taylor.
Stop that. I don't know who this Liv Taylor is.
Look it up on Google.
Okay, it's Liv Bensberg, Director of New Tree of Life, Life Coach Counselor, and Quality of Life Specialist. Now, we have a new rule since we're now inviting guests onto our podcast, and the rule is the guest gets to pick the subject. So with that said, Liv, let's let you kick it off. What is it that you want to talk about? And we will give you the majority of the time to speak for the next 15 minutes.
Oh, fun. Okay. Well, very excited to be here. But the topic I picked was breaking generational curses.
Awesome. So could you give us examples of what you mean and how you feel we can accomplish this?
So I think that the goal is uplifting the family unit and being able to redirect where our aggression lies within ourselves and being able to look inward and figure out where we're making mistakes that have already been made along the way so that we don't have to repeat those mistakes, albeit usually in a different fashion. But you do end up creating the same result. So if we want to avoid that, it's about working through trauma. And I tell every single person, the only way out is through. And it takes a lot of time and effort and learning ways to cope, but also broadening your perspective. Because especially when we're in a situation, often we don't know what kind of situation we're in. And when we get some outside perspective, we're able to look at it in a different way. We're able to accept what we've been through, and we're able to move forward. And rather than letting the things that happen to us or the things we've been brought up with be the cause of us to become the worst version of ourselves, instead, we use it to become the best version of ourselves, not because of what happened, but despite it.
I think that's awesome thinking right there. So have you and how many people have you seen and have you encountered with people that are with those who are trying to accomplish such things? And can you give us examples without giving away personal details?
Sure. I cannot say how many. I'd have to go through years and years and years worth of clients, so that would be a lot. But I can say that I've had one particular client, and while they were a beautiful, wonderful family, and I wouldn't say there was anything necessarily wrong with that family, everybody was carrying their own baggage. And it's funny, when that baggage starts getting heavy, we start kind of throwing it on everybody else, and your trauma becomes their trauma. And it starts to become a bigger, messier issue. So the best way to do that is by defining the roles and the relationships within the family, understanding how the family operates, if the dynamic is helpful, if it makes for a happier environment, or is it based off of things like pride or unhelpful tradition? Because just because we do something, we don't always know why we do it. So if your grandmother always makes, a ham a certain way, this is a story that I got told once, but they cut off the end of the ham every time she cooked it. And so her daughter did that, and then her granddaughter did that. And no one knew why they did that. Well, the only reason the great grandmother did it was because that was the only way to make the ham fit in the pan. But for generations later, it kept going, and there was no need to cut it that way. So we don't always know exactly why we do what we do. So we have to analyze, well, why are we doing this? Why is it so important that we do X, Y, Z? Is there a better way to cater to it? And I think online right now, particularly, there is a lot of discussions around how should the family function? Who do you put first? Assigning value on individuals based off of very strange and odd concepts that are unnecessary. And when I was dealing with this particular situation with this family, we actually decided it would be best to work with each individual within the family and realize that everybody was actually dealing with the exact same problem. And that is, every single person was not being given the opportunity to function at their best. Because you have to reanalyze everything, and you have to go, okay, but when we say this, it does not translate to what you intend. Instead, it translates to this person. It's like a giant game of telephone, and everybody is dysfunctional. But where does that dysfunction come from? Because it didn't come from nowhere. So you can go, okay, well, it's not my fault, it's my parents' fault. Well, it's not my parents' fault, it's my grandparents' fault. Well, it's not my great-grandparents' fault. And you keep going down the line, and eventually somebody has to decide the trauma stops here. The problematic, everything is going to stop here. We're going to stop putting energy into winning the argument, because no one wins in an argument. Instead, we are going to strive for better communication, for working together, for sitting down and going, you know what, instead of saying you always or you never, we're going to say, oh, you know what, this is what you did right in this situation. We're going to try to uplift one another, and that's by uplifting everyone together, not knocking other people down. And every single person across this planet wants one thing, and that is a sense of control. And you can control a lot of things in this world, but you cannot control how other people act or behave. And when you try to, that's when dysfunction rears its ugly head in the door and things become chaos. And when we find comfort within the chaos, that's when we can no longer see red flags. That's when we're so deep in the situation that nothing is going to help us get out until we can change the perspective.
So, you don't mind me interjecting for a second. You can hear me okay, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. So the reason why I'm interjecting, I'm sorry, Stat, for this, is that, one, I'll give you an example of what I know she's talking about, because unfortunately my life is full of generational curses, so hell yeah. And then I'll be leaving after that. But just to kind of give a better understanding so other people can understand what generational curse is, at least from my perspective. So my family, I have mom and dad, and I have two siblings that are twins, one boy, one girl, then myself. I'm the oldest. That being said, with me being the oldest, I was left to act more like a parent than I was a child, due to being 7 years older than my siblings, and having to carry on the mantle, so to speak, because my mother was working. The biggest problem that I've seen in my family history of things is how the parents treat their children. And so my mother and my father were both treated with basically an iron fist. It was my way or the highway. It's, you're under my house, my rules. It was very, go get go pick yourself a switch from the willow tree, and that's what, you'll be beaten with for disobeying me, stuff like that. And, that's how their grandparents' parents handled it. That's how my grandparents handled it. And that's how my parents were treated when they were children. So they tried carrying that on in a sense, maybe not as harsh, but to us as children. And me now having children myself, I want to say I'm the person who broke that chain link, because I refuse to treat my children in such a way, right? So I was living with my parents for a period of time because of, I met hard times, and they got to see how my children act. and it caused a lot of strife because my mother and father were always saying, "Oh, if your kids spoke to me that way when you were that age, you'd be, beaten black and blue because no one disrespects me like that." Stuff like that, And there was even a point where my mother came in. I was working graveyard shift. I was tired, and my two daughters were fighting, and they were, I don't know, 4 and 3 or 5 and 3. They're not that old, and they were crying because something had happened, some kind of fight between them. But they're siblings. It happens, right? And my mother swore to God, even though she didn't see it, she swore to God that my oldest had bit my youngest, and she was going to grab my oldest to proceed to beat her, in retrospect. And I sat up from because I was laying on the bed at the time. I sat up from my bed. In one swift, full move, I took my oldest. I flew her behind me in protective mode, Mama Bear status fully activated, and I stood my ground against my mother. I'm like, "You do not touch my children without my permission. Period." She went to fight me on it. I stood my ground. Then she eventually huffed and walked away. I found out that Adeline, my youngest, was actually the one that bit my oldest, not the other way around. And, I solved it, told them that biting is not okay, calmed them both down, let it go. Nothing else happened from that. So maybe that's a little more extreme version of generational curses, but I feel like that's a kind of a good example of basically stopping how your parents did things and their parents and their parents and their parents and their parents to prevent further childhood trauma. Am I
So
on the right line about that?
no, you are absolutely right about that. But that kind of touches on where I said about pride. There's a lot of pride, and I find this with a lot of parents as well. There is this idea of what respect is, but they say the word respect, but that's not really the word that they're going for. There's a better word that we could use. I'm trying to think of what it is at the moment. But it's fear-based. It's not, because respect, I don't have to fear you to respect you.
I think the word you're looking for is power.
Sorry?
I think the word you're looking for is power.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's
Yeah.
another word I used the other day and I just cannot think of it. However, it is that kind of thing where it's almost like subservitude. You want to be able to control your child. It becomes with a lot of expectations as well. It's, respect is I can treat you however I want to treat you, but you have to treat me in this very specific fashion, and anything outside of that is disrespectful, and anything that's disrespectful needs to be absolutely obliterated, punished. You need to understand how horrible that is, and you're the worst type of person, and you cannot put that into a child that, oh, you did not treat this person of authority this very specific way that means respect for them. I knew someone and they said that, oh, for my child to respect me, they need to do X, Y, and Z. Well, if X, Y, and Z is clean your room, do your chores, do your homework, okay, all right, you respect your house, respect your rules. But if your rules start become to the point where that child does not have boundaries, that child is unsafe, that child is being met with corporal punishment for simply being a child, that's when it starts to become it's insanity, because it's not about respect at that point. And what you're actually doing is setting your child up for poor relationships down the line. Because what happens when they go to the next person of authority, whether that be a teacher, whether that be a coach, whether that be an employer, you'll be surprised just how much abuse an adult will take from a person of authority, because they think that that's what respect is. And that even goes beyond the family. One thing that I find with the 16 to about the 35-year-olds is whatever industry that they're working in, there's always somebody older there who believes that respect means so many more things than it actually means.
Now, I would like
Stockholm syndrome, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
Now, I would like to stop just long enough to read a comment or two by Lacey. She said, every child... Uh-huh.
I'm just going to go ahead and bounce out because I got to get my kids.
Understood.
You guys have a good podcast. I'll try to come listen in later, but thank you for meeting all of you.
Okay. Good to have you here.
Have a nice day.
All right, bye, guys.
See ya. Okay, there's a comment under the stream by Lacey. She says, every child is so different and you can't handle certain situations with your kids the same way because they may not react in the same way. And I think that's a good point. What are your thoughts on that, Liv?
Every child is absolutely different. However, we can go based off of statistical data for what we know to be better forms of parenting than other forms of parenting. Like we know that it's not a great thing if our child is behaving a certain way to validate that behavior with a reward. So if your kid finds out that all they have to do is scream their lungs out in order to get a piece of candy, then that reinforces that behavior. But if you're seeing the behavior you want to see in your child and you toss them a piece of candy and you're just like, you've been so good today, you deserve a treat, then that kid goes, oh, this is how I act to get that piece of candy. And then it gives them something to grow from, but you have to analyze it like that. So there's... I'm so sorry that I'm so tired today. I was so hoping that I would get a nap in before the podcast, and that didn't happen.
That's no problem. There's no need to be 100% professional here. You're
Can you
among
repeat
friends.
the comment one more time, please?
The comment.
Would you give me a moment?
The comment is
Okay,
every child is so different, and you can't handle certain situations with your kids the same way because they may not react in the same way.
Right. That was my other point, was coping mechanisms. It depending on what your parent-child relationship is like. Like I can say for a fact, without a doubt, my parents had a much rougher childhood with some very arbitrary yet confusing rules that were not based on, statistics or what we know to be true when it comes to children now. But if you ask them, well, how do you feel as an adult? They'd go, oh, well, I'm fine. Well, it's because over time they found ways to cope, and they found ways to cope through things like religion and God and healing and working towards things. But that was a process that they had to go through, not just in childhood, but through their adulthood. So yeah, they're okay now, and that's wonderful. But think about how much more life could have been wonderful or sweeter or kinder or just less draining, because we have to remember what distress and discomfort and all these things do to our body. If we are constantly under distress, you will end up getting sick. It has physical results. And some children have really wonderful coping skills, and other kids don't have as great coping skills. And it's about, where were they taught these skills and when were they taught these skills, or were these things that this child came up with by themselves? And usually if you leave a child to their own devices, they'll start figuring out ways to cope that's not always the healthiest way, because adults already struggle with that. A stressful situation, you're going through a lot. Some people resort to drugs, they resort to alcohol, they resort to other things. And a child might start doing things that are not to their benefit. And that's where we start talking about things like eating disorders, because it's something they can control. They can control their own body. Self-harm, I can control my own body. Every person is going for a sense of control. So it's where you taught good, healthy, strong coping mechanisms to help you through these times, or was the primary focus on the child just, oh, well, you've been bad, and therefore I'm going to treat you this way because my parents treated me this way, and, therefore I know it works because I'm fine. And I'm so grateful that my parents recognized that the things my grandparents did and my great-grandparents did, those were the greatest things. And while I love my parents, and I think they are the most fantastic people, I tell everybody I meet, every wonderful thing that I do on this earth is to the credit of my mom and dad, and everything else I do is despite them. Because they truly did a wonderful job, but it doesn't mean they were perfect parents. Every parent is going to make mistakes. Every parent is going to go a little bit too far. Every parent is going to have that moment of, I'm losing my mind right now. Dear God, help me. What do I do with this child? And when you're going through those times, it's really important for you to have your own coping skills so you can model that to your kid.
Looks like you struck a chord with Lacey, because she says in her next comment, yes, positive reinforcement. Now, Alderon, do you have anything you would like to add thought-wise to what we're talking about here?
No, I honestly I do not have anything to add to this. This is pretty darn perfect. Hit the hammer on top of the nail. Nothing I can really add. That's perfect.
What about you, Hergon?
Well, aside two things, none of them very much serious. So, depends on to you whether you want to hear it or not.
Well, we always want to hear something.
Well, first things first. Remember that word you were missing, Liv? About
Yes.
the parent and the since. Would you say that would be fitting the word lord over?
It's not the word I was looking for, but yes, I would say that it is. But it is still about a sense of control, about parents wanting to control their kids, and I think that is a perfectly fine descriptor word. And just because it's not the word I'm thinking of doesn't mean it's not adequate. I would say it's more than adequate.
And this, well, now I thought of something, but I'll finish the first off formally. Remember when you said about remark about teaching bad patterns to your kids when it screams its head off and gets a candy?
Yes.
I just imagine myself giving that kid the candy with a slingshot.
I'm not sure if that's going to necessarily reinforce the behavior you want, but if it was on AFV, I probably would laugh.
And the only thing I actually was thinking about now is about generational curses as per se. Would you say that it's possible that, let's say, the either the family unit or family in general doesn't have that, can be without that, it can be that healthy, or at least how often is it would you say that it's possibly a status of things that the family doesn't see that it has that curse upon it, that it's doesn't recognize the problem per se? How often does that happen?
It can, if you're asking how often change can happen, change always has the possibility of happening. Here's where it really boils down to is, do you have people willing to work it out? Because that's why, even though it's not the most profitable way to run a business, we try to work with people based off of what they can afford. Because it's my policy, but it's also my life's mission of the only thing that you should need when you are in dire need of help is the willingness to ask for it, to recognize that there is a problem. You might not know what the problem is, and oftentimes the problem is ourselves. We stand in our own way. But if you can accept that there is in fact a problem and you're willing to put the effort into it, all you should need to do to receive help is to ask for it. And when those times come, so by the time a client gets to me, they're already in a state of, I know this isn't working, even if they don't know what to do. So if you can recognize that this is dysfunctional, nobody's happy, no one is thriving, we're surviving, we're not living. If you can recognize that, then your ability to create real permanent change in not only your life, but your children's life, and in every life that you connect with as you walk through this earth, the chances of that go skyrocketing because they already recognize when they walk in the door that something is wrong. But if you're in a family and you want to change that family from the inside by yourself, you have to just start with the basis of, I am not in control of anyone's actions except my own. And just because somebody commits an action does not mean that it requires a reaction. Sometimes it is necessary, and we do have to make those choices. But you get the control over yourself and nobody else. And the best way to lead at that point without professional assistance is to lead by example. The same way Lil was talking about how she stepped between her daughter and her mother and said, actually, no, I'm going to show you how I parent because you will not do it this way. So sometimes you do have to stand up and say, actually, no, this isn't what we're doing, and we have to react. Especially when, we're risking trauma to a child. So of course there's going to be times when you have to do that. Otherwise, it's, well, you know what, your mother-in-law might have said that backhanded compliment that wasn't really a compliment because she's trying to start an argument, she's trying to cause problems. That doesn't mean we have to address that in that moment. Sometimes it is better to go ahead and step away so we can take a breath, think clearly, and then go back into the situation knowing we are only in control of ourselves.
I'd like to temporarily, excuse me, I'd like to temporarily interrupt by saying two things. We've reached the 30-minute mark, so now the rest of the podcast will be open to all you viewers. If you wish to step into the voice chat channel one at a time and voice your thoughts or ask any questions, you're free to. And plus, Lacey has added another comment to the stream. It says, she said, I know my children are like me and trying to take control of everything in their lives to just going to make them want to rebel more. And I know that because I was the same exact way. It took me a moment to read that because for some reason the heart symbol is covering part of the comment, but there you have it.
It would be really cool if one day everyone could see the comments. That would be cool.
I would like to know how to set that up.
I don't know, but it would be a very cool thing.
Yes, I agree, because it's I'm trying to find certain points in time in the podcast to insert the comments in verbally without interrupting too much.
Honestly, I saw a couple of podcasters have that kind of display on when they're recording themselves. There's the chat is live on somewhere in the corner of the screen or something like that.
Even though Lil has left the us right now, she says she's listening at the moment. So now that I gotten the interruptions out of the way, Liv, is there anything else you would like to add to the conversation? Anything that you'd like to add to the subject, and it doesn't even necessarily have to pertain to the subject either. If there's just any details you would like to add that you want to get out there that you think would be very helpful to people.
What I think would be very helpful to people, before you address any kind of crisis or trauma or anything going on in your life, because you need to be very careful when you do those things. It is important to do them and to work through them. The only way out is through. If you have to tell yourself anything every day, it's the only way out is through. Make sure you're hitting every key point in your life to be able to make good decisions. People panicking don't make good decisions. So instead, before you start addressing everything around you, I need you to ask yourself, are you eating properly? Are you sleeping properly? Do you get enough water to drink? Do you get enough vitamins and minerals and nutrients? Do you get sunlight? Do you exercise occasionally? I'll take occasionally. I would prefer you go on a walk one day a month or one day a year than nothing at all, because at least it's something. It's all about baby steps. Don't expect leaps and bounds, because that burnout will hit and you'll crash. It's about consistency, and when you consistently take those baby steps and you hit your basics, which is what do we need for decent quality of life, and you focus on that first, then addressing everything else going on around you is a lot easier. So start there with the baby step.
I will admit I have failed in almost every single one of those things.
I have a question to what you just said, Liv.
Mm-hmm.
What's sunlight?
Yeah. Well, the sun is a star.
That's his humor for you.
No, it's funny.
Anyways, how much time? I mean, yeah, I do know partially it's dependent on the individual, but how long do you think it takes for people to undergo these type of changes? Like how, in terms of months or years?
Well, I can do it based off of sessions. So typically, I have one session a week. Sometimes clients need more, sometimes they need less. But based off of sessions, I've had some clients where they come in and then 2, 3, 4 sessions down the road, they've just made these, very strong movements very quickly, which they are in their right to do. And they were the right moves. It was the right thing for them to do. They just went very, very quickly, and they were able to get themselves exactly where they were going. And by session 5, they're telling me, hey, thanks for all your help, but I think I'm good now. I've got the tools I need. I know what to do. I just apply this to everything in my life now, and I'm doing great. And they might check in a year later for a catch up, but other than that, and so I can tell them how proud I am of them, of all the amazing success that they're having. But some people are they're like that, and they're so ready for change that they jump right into it. It's also very much up to the individual and where they're at. While there are other people where it does take longer. Some people, they have to go at a much slower pace. It's about addressing the immediate day-to-day thing, and we can't actually even work towards what they've been through because we're so focused on just the trauma of living today. So for those people, sometimes it can take years, but it's also based off of the environment and situation that they're in as well, where you can come to me and tell me, oh, I'm very depressed and I'm very anxious, and there's all of these horrible things happening around me and I'm just super depressed. And we can use things like medication, to give you, some temporary chemical balancing to help see you through until we can get you in a better environment, into a better position. But that's not a long-term solution, because when you say, oh, I'm really depressed and my life sucks, well, my solution to that is, well, let's make your life suck less then. Let's build you a better environment. Let's get you to where you need to be. But there's housing crises across the entire world right now, where people are struggling to be able to find accommodation in a healthy, safe environment, in a healthy, safe neighborhood. And so if that is one of your biggest causes of stress, that's not going to automatically go away just because you've had a few sessions. We actually have to get you to the point where we can get you adequate housing. So that can take a year or more for some people, sometimes longer, depending where you are. So it's very much dependent on not only the person, but their environment as well, and where they physically are at the moment. So I don't think that it's a good depiction on whether or not somebody is more capable than another of healing or changing or creating a better life for themselves. I don't think that's dictated by, how quickly they do X, Y, and Z. It's just some people are in a position to be able to make moves faster than others, and some people need a bit more time. But I find with most of my clients, they don't stay very long. I would say I have a few who have lasted a year or so, and some still do check-ins. 5 years later, they'll still do a check-in now and then. But most of my clients, just speaking for my practice alone, is after a few months, most people tend to get to where they want to be and have the skills to move forward. And, the whole point is it's not supposed to be a chain around your leg for the rest of your life. It's supposed to be a jumping board to spring into your goals and what you want to do, and giving you the skills and the tools that you need to obtain them. And then they're out the door quite quickly. And it's very nice seeing that happen, because as much as you get attached to people, baby birds have got to fly, and it's wonderful to see them soar.
Now, before we continue, Lil dropped 2 comments actually more than 2. But the 2 main ones are thank you, Liv, for bringing such good information. And she has a question for you. Will you be posting more on TikTok with your new account?
I absolutely will. Right now, there is a kind of funny video about relationships and where we set the value on individuals in our life, whether it be our parents, our children, or our spouse, and who deserves to be more respected or viewed at in a different way or valued differently based on where they sit in the car, who gets served dinner first or what have you. And that's on there. And then there's a video of me making fun of the Beyonce song. But there will be a lot more uplifting, fun videos that hopefully resonate with a lot of people and give them a source to actually feel heard without having to see some cringy couple fighting on the internet and then it being literally useless. It's not productive at all.
How can I find your new TikTok account? I didn't know about it until she said something.
I did not know she was on my TikTok. So it's New Tree of Life. That is the name of my business, and so that's what my name is on there. It's very candid, and I used to think that if I posted online, I needed to be very dressed up and I needed to, make it look as professional as possible. But that's not where people are, and that's not what people connect to. So it's a lot more candid now, and it's just me chilling on my bed or sitting on my sofa, and I've got quite a lot of videos I'm looking forward to posting in this new year.
You're talking about being dressed up with me. I mean, have you not seen what Statton looks like?
Honestly, when I picture you, I picture your avatar every time, so in my head, that's what you look like.
Oh, I wish I was that fit.
I know what you look like because I video chatted with you, but like I that's what I picture though. When like I think of your name, that's the picture in my head.
He looks like a melted Tom Selleck. Mind if I ask you something, Liv?
Yeah, go ahead.
How much would you say that with the problems you were describing, how much is, for example, denial a factor in the problems you help with?
Denial is a huge factor. So it's a very huge factor. A lot of people can't accept where the problems actually lie. And a lot of people, if you can't accept that there's a problem, that's the biggest thing, is we also go through stages of grief as well. So when you start to realize, oh wow, I actually do have to set these hard boundaries and I actually do have to step away from the situation. A lot of people don't want to accept that because there's this idea in their head of what things should be. And you have to be able to question your own beliefs. And that's something I tell everybody is my job is not to make you question your beliefs or for me to question your beliefs. It's for you to sit down and go, okay, well, this is what I believe it should be, but why should it be that way? And keep asking yourself the same question, why, but why this, but why that? And see if you're really satisfied with the answer, and then review what you have been believing, because I had one amazing client who's had tons and tons of progress, and they had it in their head that, as a child, I was in a big, happy family. We were a big, happy family. We were a traditional family. We're a good family. We're a loving family. I had a good childhood. So I always like to pull up that Bob's Burgers quote of, kids with good childhoods don't stand like that.
I remember that episode.
Yeah. So, and it's with the shoulders slumped. It's with the head down. It's the looking at the ground and not up at the world. And there's just a way that we hold ourselves where we're holding on to a lot. And when we hold on to these belief systems of, no, my childhood was good, but then you have to go, okay, but sweetie, was it really that good? Or are we sugarcoating it a little bit because we need that to be true? And then as they analyze everything that's happening to them today and they revisit those old memories, they started to realize, well, actually, no, some things weren't so good. Actually, you know what? There was a lot of problems with alcohol. Actually, you know what? People were way too controlling of me. These relationships, while I do love these people, were intrusive. I didn't have boundaries. I wasn't allowed to be myself. I had to rely on things like withholding information or lying just to stay off of the radar. It was intensive. It was abusive. It was verbally destructive. And a lot of the problems that I'm dealing with today are because a lot of traumatic and horrible things did happen, but they were so sold on the idea that, oh, but I had a good childhood. Well, why does having a good childhood matter that much to you? You're an adult now. And once we get through the whys, it's actually, oh, well, you know what? I actually didn't have that great of a childhood, and I don't want to keep living this way. And then we're able to correct the things happening right now.
Sometimes it sounds like a mantra with some people. It's like, no, I had a good childhood. I had a good childhood. You almost, with your mind's eye, you almost see the people rocking back and forth while saying sometimes these kind of things. I had a good
Sometimes
childhood.
they are.
So I wanted to ask Liv something real quick. So with this topic, I know it has multiple meanings for a
Hello?
Alderon,
I think he fell asleep.
we lost you. You cut out.
All
Wake
right.
up.
I'm awake. I'm alive.
Awesome.
Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I know this topic has multiple meanings to generational curses. I was wondering if you ever done any research or have any info on so for like genetical or genetic curses, as you want to call it, or genetic factors like diseases and stuff like that. Like, for example, a family may have a genetic predisposition to the certain addictions.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you can touch up on that as well.
All right. Do you want to? Well, you know what? I'll just all encompass it instead. So, whether you're talking about somebody's proclivity to addiction or whether or not you're talking about diseases within the family, such as, oh, there's a history of X, Y, and Z in my family. If you go and you look up the causes of diseases, you will find on most things, stress is one of them. And that's something I always tell my clients, which is what is disease? It's dis-ease. Our body, our mind are in dis-ease. And if we want to be healthy, you have to heal thyself, which means you do have to break away from certain things. And one of those things is positive self-talk. Because if you sit here and you worry yourself sick that you are going to have something that runs in your family, like one of them is that I've noticed with a lot of clients is they'll have a family member or several family members that have certain mental disorders, such as things like, schizophrenia or things like that. And I wouldn't call someone with schizophrenia crazy, because I don't think that's a productive term when actually talking about real disabilities. But if you are so worried about people calling you crazy or you being crazy, and you've seen the way that person gets treated and you don't want to be treated that way, and you are so terrified that you're going to develop something or become something or you already are something, you will make yourself sick. You will find yourself doing things and being misdiagnosed a lot of the time because you are so hyper focused on, oh, but I don't want to have this. Oh, but I don't want to have this. And you stress yourself out. That stress will kill you. Stress is one of the biggest killers in the world. And you can say, oh, but we live, very luxurious lives. We don't have to go down to the river to wash our clothes. We don't have to, trek in snow and sleet and hail for days at a time in order, to get to a family member's house, by horseback or whatever. We have very cushy lives now. But that cushiness does not come without stress. It's just different types of stress. And stress will absolutely kill you. So it's about learning good coping mechanisms. It's also, if you are religious, some people aren't. It's about putting your faith and your trust in a higher power. Now, if you don't believe in that higher power, you need to put your trust and faith that everything is as it should be. I have seen hell and I have gone past it. I've gone through rough times and I've gotten through it. And if I go through hard times again, I will go through it again and I will be okay again. And I have my past as my example for why I know I can survive the future. You have to have that trust. You have to have that faith that it is going to be okay, because if you let that stress and fear dominate and rule your life, you will make yourself sick. And that is where disease comes from. That is where it plagues our bodies, and it is where it plagues our minds. And that also is where, if we, when you talk about addiction does run through families. But also there's a certain part of us where some people are more likely to have addictive tendencies than other people. I know some people, and they literally they could smoke one cigarette and never smoke again the rest of their life. And they would be like, nah, I'm good. I would never suggest someone test that theory, because you're more likely than not to end up smoking the rest of your life. But some people are that way, but they're very rare. And then there are other people with severe addictive tendencies where it starts at a very young age. It's based off of what you've seen your parents do and how you choose to cope with it. And, some parents might be alcoholics and drug users, and that's the reason their kid goes, you know what, I never want to touch that ever. But it also might be the introduction to that normalizes it so that when they go through difficult times, they rely on it as well. So it's based off of a lot of different things.
Now, before we continue, Lil left another comment, and with it, I have a question for her. But first, I'll read her comment. Can we have another podcast in the future regarding therapy and whether medication is good or not? Now, Lil, when you ask that question, do you mean another podcast episode with Liv, or do you just mean in general? And I'll go ahead and jump ahead of the answer to the question back. Liv, would you ever be willing to come back for any future episodes? Or is this a one-time thing for
Really,
you?
I'm having a great time.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
I just hope I'm not too motor mouth for the podcast. I'm trying to say things kind of all-encompassing, but it tends to use a lot of words.
Okay, first of all, I don't think there's such a thing as motor mouthing in a podcast. It's supposed to be about talking. That's like someone going to my Elder Smith YouTube channel and say, that preacher won't shut up. I'm like, yeah, it's a preaching video. It's about preaching. I've never heard of silent preaching before.
Well, there's sign language and all that, right?
Oh, you're so funny. Yeah, actually, that was good.
As for motor mouth and all this, I'm actually relieved that you're saying this much, because when I heard generational curses, I was like, oh my God, I'm screwed. I don't know anything about this.
I got Lil's answer. She said yes with Liv. I love her speaking.
Yes.
Well, I would absolutely love that.
Awesome.
I 100% agree. This is like, I would say this is a 10 out of 10. This is perfect.
Yes, this is definitely the best podcast episode so far.
Kind of
I
wondering
did
that.
want to say,
100%
if I may.
informative.
I'm sorry, what?
I did want to say, if I may, because I talked to you about this previously, and I know that we've only got 10 minutes left, so I did just want to say that I do raise funds to give free sessions to people, and for every $20 donation that we get over the year of 2025, my company is going to match it. And we are going to try to give as many free sessions to as many people in need as we possibly can. And if there's anybody who can donate, we appreciate it. And it does go to help a lot of people. But if you can't and you are somebody who needs help, I implore you to please go check out my TikTok. You can email me. It's ntolcoaching@gmail.com, and feel free to send me a message and say, hey, I'm here and I need some help, and we will do everything in our power to get you either the cheapest sessions you can possibly do, or hopefully paid off for by donation. So just reach out if you need help, because that's exactly what we're here to do.
I'm glad you brought that up, because at the last 10-minute mark, I was going to actually have you do that, so your timing was perfect. Also, I would like to bring up that because social media is being what it is anymore, a lot of things are becoming restricted and demonetized and whatnot. And for this reason, I found a way around it, which is my Venmo account, which I leave in the description of all the lives and videos. And a good portion of any donations is going to go to people like Liv and Dragon's Fire Lacey and anyone else that needs it. The donations are not for me strictly or anything, but it does give us the freedom to speak our minds 100% openly without fear of any negative consequences from the social media rules.
That's the one that gets you, isn't it? Is you try to say something that is very helpful, and then the powers that be decide, oh, wait, you're trying to tell people to be healthy? We're trying to get them to eat Tide Pods. What are you doing?
Not just that, but it's like, I did a video for TikTok advertising the podcast, and I explained what the podcast was about, but then it said your video is now restricted and will not appear on the FYP because it is dangerous to others. So I appealed it, and I got the appeal back saying it's rejected because it's your ways go against diversity. I'm like, so you're trying to prove you're diverse, which means you're open to all ideas by rejecting some ideas that are coming from me. That the irony.
Living contradiction. You're trying to be inclusive by being exclusive.
Kind of like how Disney won't hire people with real dwarvenism to play the dwarves in Snow White because for some reason that there's nothing like there's no inclusiveness than excluding people that you consider to be, I don't know, offensive, I guess.
What do you expect? Social media recently, that AI fiasco thing, it was telling people to put Gorilla Glue on their pizza.
But
no, I'm not kidding.
I know you're not. I
didn't see that.
You're smart.
But the thing is but I'm getting away from the subject. I pointed out that that's what's the significance in the donations. So yes, donate to live. Donate to the podcast. It's what helps us and gives us the freedom to speak uncensored by the powers that be. It's our way around them. It's our way to stick it to them. Well, maybe not stick it to them, but you know what I mean. Freedom.
Don't say
stick it to the man. It's for freedom.
Monetized.
I would love to actually do a topic with you guys again around what I like to call the imaginary victim, which is we like to, view people in certain ways and put them in certain categories and boxes. And we try to figure out what's fair based off of our own bias without actually understanding that bias is actually what's causing the problem and the lack of equality and the lack of freedom and the lack of diversity is because of preconceived notions. Because I can tell you right now, you can go, oh, but that's offensive to these type of people, but there might be people within, you can't speak for a whole group of people, even if it is within your quote unquote category, you cannot speak for all. And the only way everyone gets a voice is by allowing everyone to have their own unique voice.
Yes.
Oh my god, I think Statton is going to love you. He's gonna knock on you with the proposals for next show every 15 minutes.
Oh, she's posting more comments. She says, hey, I may sign up for that. So you're definitely striking a chord with everybody here, Liv. I'm honestly, I don't know if you were expecting it to be this good, but believe me, it is good.
I mean, I was a little bit hesitant. I haven't done a podcast in a hot minute, and I'm definitely restarting all my social media. So if you go on any of my pages and you're like, oh, 0 followers, it's because all the accounts for everything else I've ever done have been wiped, deleted, gone, banned sometimes. And then now it's just everything's starting over in this new year. So, but that's not me. It's not a fake account. It's actually me. It's Liv Bensberg with New Tree of Life, and we're just starting over. And I was a bit nervous. I was like, I don't know how this podcast is going to go, but I'm pretty thrilled with it.
I hope this doesn't put you on the spot, Liv, but I'm going to say this before time runs out. If any of you are interested in giving us ideas on what to talk about in our podcast, or if you wish to actually speak to Liv, she's in my Discord server called Statton's Mansion. I leave a link to it in the description of my lives and all my videos. Just remember, this seems to confuse people. When you first step into my server, you got to go to the security office channel and tap the family icon to prove you're not a bot, and then you'll be allowed into the rest of the mansion. There, you'll be able to meet all the people, from the people I make Discord sims about on my series, to people like Liv, Lacey, and anyone else that would just love to help all of you and make a difference in your lives.
Absolutely. And I promise to learn more about Discord and how it works. That's what I've been doing for the last 24 hours, is taking a crash course in Discord.
How you find it?
Complicated. unnecessarily complicated and fun. It'll be fun. I'm not, when you're young, it's so easy to just grab a new app and know everything about it and investigate everything. I had to actually message Statton to just say, actually, can you teach me how to set my notifications? I don't know what to do.
I am so sorry for that. I forget that there are people that don't know how to tweak the notifications. By the way, just out of curiosity, did you turn the notifications off completely, or will you still get them if you're tagged?
I made them so if I'm tagged, I will always see the notification. I just won't see every single notification from every single room, because as much as I am a Mimikyu is my favorite Pokemon. Beyond, that's my favorite one. I'm not much of a chatty Cathy about Pokemon. It's not that I don't enjoy it. I just don't know that much.
Oh yeah, I just created activities or brought in bots that are that give activities from raising pets and doing stuff, so people can not only socialize, but they'll actually have stuff to do in the mansion so that they can bond. I want the mansion to feel like a home away from the rest of the internet, and I want people to realize as they're talking to each other, hey, we're here for each other. We're here to help each other. We all have our hardships. We all have our bumps in the road, but guess what? You're not alone. We have each other, and we're here not only to chat with each other, but help and love one another.
Can we change my room's name?
Huh?
Can we change my room's name so it says like the counseling couch and then it's Liv's office?
Absolutely, but which one do you want it? Because I'm not sure if I can fit both names in.
Pick one. Pick one.
Pick one. Okay.
Yeah, I tried.
I'll do just that for you. And with that said,
I was gonna say you can choose one of the main titles you want, and then when they click on it, it should pop up like say the description. You can put the other title in the description as well.
That is true. Now Lil has said I said hey because we had good podcasts before. Yeah, I know we had good podcasts before. I don't deny that, Lil. That wasn't a shot at our previous podcast. In fact, I think if you had gotten to stick around, that would have also made this podcast even better. We all need to be here, but we understand that you have things you need to do. And Autumn says, I'm the only bot allowed because she, I don't know if I should reveal her secret. So I apologize, Autumn, if I'm outing you, but she'll sometimes make her Discord name probably a bot or probably not a bot to deter creeps from, putting the moves on her online.
Okay, but if someone does that, I mean, we should take a moment. Maybe me and Lil should take a moment and just analyze that, because I always find it fascinating why people do what they do.
You mean Autumn, right? Because Autumn's the one who does the probably a bot and probably not a bot. She's the one posting the comments under the video at the moment.
Oh, I just brought up Lil because I thought it would be something that she'd have some wonderful insight on. I love her attitude. I just meant we could all analyze it together as a family and just go, okay, so why do we particularly think that we should harass people on the internet? Like, can we work through this? This is an interesting concept to start with.
You hearing this now, Lil? You hearing this right now? You are missed. You are loved. Ah. And you were worried about that. Ah.
Oh, Liv, to answer your question about that harassment on the internet, because it's funny.
I really love that you guys have some comedic relief, even though we're talking about some pretty tough topics. I like that you do have the comedic relief to come in, and that's the same way I do my sessions. Is you're going through some stuff, and then we have to crack a few jokes, and we have to kind of change things. I usually try to make myself the butt of the joke, because that way it can give some comic relief. And if you can get somebody to smile or to laugh, laughter is truly healing, and that's such a wonderful component. I'm so glad you guys have that in your podcast as well.
Of course, because we want to show people that not only do we want to help and talk about these, and some of these are pretty heavy subjects, but we want to show people that we actually care, that we're actually using that we have emotions, that our hearts go out to all of them, not just, oh, we think things through logically and we just shut down emotionally. Nah. No, we're not like that. And Lil says, I am welcome to that in response to you, Liv. And I'm a Gemini. I am the comedian.
Well, she can be the comedian. I think I'm an Aquarius, but honestly, I haven't followed any of that in a really long time. And every time I say I'm an Aquarius, people tell me I'm not one, so I don't actually know.
And when I tell people I'm an Aries, they're like, wow, you're an Aries? You are so, that means you're passionate and you're so emotional. And I'm like, I'm not emotional.
Well, you know, I'm a Leo, and everybody just says I'm an idiot, so I stick with that.
Stop that. Stop tearing yourself down.
That is negative
You-
self-talk, and that is
that's
definitely
it.
something to be discussed as well, is you have to have positive self-talk. So you have to say, you know what, if you do something and you think it was a bit idiotic or something, and that's what you believe, then you need to tell yourself, rather than I'm an idiot, you need to say, well, I'm a human being and I had a natural, normal human error, and now I will do something that's also natural and normal for humans. I will correct that error. I am human, I am normal, and will continue.
Okay,
Oh,
Lil
that's
also
what-
says, I'll help you, and LOL you are. No, I'm not, Lil. I'm not emotional. Stop that.
Yes, you are. I can contest to that because I've known you for almost 10 years.
Alderon.
Hey, I love you too, buddy.
I love
Statton,
you
put the
too.
tennis racket down. Put the tennis racket down, Statton.
I don't even play tennis. How did I get that? But anyways,
Well, it's
sorry.
been lovely. I have to go and get to sessions now, guys, though, but thank you so much for having me on, and I hope to come back again real soon.
Understood.
Was lovely to meet
I'm gonna go ahead and end the podcast by saying, well, thank you, Liv, and thank you, co-host, for all being a part of this, and thank you, Lil, as well. This has been the Heart to Heart with Statton podcast. Like, share, and subscribe, and remember that you are not alone, and you have yourselves a wonderful day.